Hello, everybody, and welcome to my next chapter in my social media journey in NASCAR, and that is this podcast slash talk show, if you will. I don't have a name for it yet, but I always wanted to do something like this, and this is our pilot episode. There is no name for it. Maybe that'll come to me as I do more of these shows or podcasts, whatever it is. You'll be able to listen to it, so if you're listening to it, thank you for tuning in, or if you're watching the physical video and you could see me, hello. But we're going to be kind of talking about the championship race in this video, just a little bit of a season recap, just some brief talking points, and I'm going to try to see if I can get the speed of what it is to do something of this magnitude. I don't know if this is going to be something that is going to be great. I don't know if I'll be good at it. I'm going to try to get better as time goes on. But I want to give my unbiased opinion, and, I've had the idea to do it for a while, but I just wanted to wait kind of until after the championship, into the off season, and that's why we're doing it now. So let's get all that intro stuff. We're done with all that. Most of you know me. If you don't, hi, I'm Richie, Days of Richie on Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. Thank you for tuning in, but let's talk about our first subject, and that is the championship race. So, we had a not controversial finish, but kind of controversial. And that was Kyle Larson winning the championship after Denny Hamlin dominated all day. And let's kind of break it down by what each side is thinking. So I want to just put it out there that I am a Denny Hamlin fan. It was heartbreaking. It really was. You were 3 laps away from winning a championship, 20 years in the making, especially everything that was happening in the last couple weeks, months with his father. It just looked like it was all lining up for this Cinderella story, and the glass heel did not fit, or the glass slipper, I guess you could say, did not fit. So it did definitely make me want to just kind of shut down for a week, which is what I did on social media. I just needed kind of a week to just kind of decompress, and it hurts. When you put so much passion into this sport, and I know most fans can relate to this, you pick your driver, and that's your driver for years. And I was a Mark Martin fan before Denny Hamlin, and it's the same thing. So that's why it hurts even more, because it's like, with Mark, it was like, we'll get him in, 2002, and we didn't. And then it's like, in 2005, and he didn't, and 6, and then, maybe 2009, he's back, and no, but... so then seeing this with Hamlin, it's a double whammy. But, Denny Hamlin dominated that race. Unfortunately, the first car to cross the, start-finish line on the last lap in front of the others is the champion, and that's Kyle Larson. For people to say Kyle Larson didn't deserve the championship, I think is just blasphemy. Most of these fans are fans that want back a full 36-race format or some type of format without playoffs. So if you're one to say Kyle Larson didn't deserve it, but you want that format back, well, that just doesn't make sense. For me, I want the playoffs gone. That's something that you know about me. I do not want the playoffs. I think it's a ridiculous thing. It hasn't helped viewership in any way. Every year it seems that the viewership just keeps going down and down and down, and we're just getting controversial stuff like this at elimination races or championships, and it's a load of banana oil. But yeah, so the fans that want the 36-race format back, including myself, some of them looked at that. They said Kyle Larson didn't deserve it. Makes no sense. Yes, Kyle Larson deserved it. Now, the other half of me, the current format is playoffs. That season was playoffs. So Denny Hamlin deserved that championship under playoff format. He did. He did everything he had to do throughout all the rounds, won a race in almost every round, won his way in, and then dominated the race and was 3 laps away from doing it, and it all came undone. So yeah, Denny deserved it under playoffs. That's all I'm trying to say. But I am okay, and I've come to terms with Kyle Larson winning because I want that full point format back, and Larson still would have won it anyways. So you can't get mad at it either way. So looking at then the tire call at the end, 4 tires versus 2 tires, I think the 4 tires is a correct call. Unfortunately, with the amount of cars that stayed out, which I think was 3 or 4, and then the amount of cars that took 2 tires, which again could have been another 4, which had Hamlin start in 10th instead of, if Kyle Larson was the only car that took was the only driver that took 2 tires. And Denny Hamlin, everybody else took 4. Well, Hamlin's going to line up on his back bumper or to his outside. Well, Denny Hamlin wins. But unfortunately, you had all the Penske drivers that took 2 tires. I don't know if I think Cindric was wrecked out. It was Josh Berry. That was, satellite Penske who took 2. If they don't get in the mix, Denny, I think, wins, obviously. But unfortunately, those drivers got in the way, which that's their right to do. They're racing for a win. Ryan Blaney did, won. Brad Keselowski stayed out. People say, why would he stay out? Well, Brad Keselowski hasn't won this year. I mean, the 6 car, when he took over, he just won 1 race and 1 dual race, I believe, if I remember that correctly. And he almost won the thing. So sometimes if you want to win, you're staying out or you're taking 2 tires. And unfortunately, it's at the expense of Denny Hamlin not passing all of them in turns 1 and 2, and he doesn't win the championship. But I still think, thinking about it a week later, that 4 tires definitely was the right call, just the circumstances that happened. And then you could say, well, maybe he shouldn't have pit because Brad didn't pit, and he still technically finished ahead of Kyle Larson, so that could have been Denny. But you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. There's a great quote by Mark Martin back in the 2004 Atlanta Fall race, and you go back and watch that, and he talks about, I think it was Pat Tryson, and he says, you're a sitting duck. They pit. If you pit, they all stay out. If you don't pit, then they, like, vice versa. I was kind of losing my mind right there. The ring light's getting a little bright on me. Maybe I'm not cut out for this, but you get what I mean. You do one thing, they do the other. You do the other, and then it's never perfect. It's never going to work out, especially when you're the leader, which is what he was. It was just such a terrible situation for him. But continuing on with that, I posted on my Instagram story to send me questions if you had any, and there was one brave person who did send me a question, so thank you, and his name is TJ Overturf 11, who looks like he's a Denny Hamlin fan, but he asked, does the championship loss fuel Hamlin for redemption in 2026? And this is an interesting subject because he looked drained. He looked destroyed at the award banquet, the post-race. He hasn't posted anything on social media without how outgoing he is, and that's okay. It's his private life. He has a lot of personal stuff going on. But to that question, I mean, you look at certain drivers. I guess we could talk about drivers and then athletes as a whole. I have a few that come to mind off the top of my head. So, of course, Earnhardt took him 20 years to win the Daytona 500. So there is still that opportunity. And then like Justin Allgaier in the Xfinity Series. He had never won. He'd been to the championship for how many years? Never won. And then last year, 2024, technically last year was 2025. But you know what I mean. So it's possible. And then another kind of comparison that I can think of is like John Elway with the NFL. I think Elway went to 3 Super Bowls and lost all 3. And then in 1997 and 1998, I believe, they go on and they win against the Packers and then the Falcons. He wins back-to-back and then he retires. So we have seen athletes who have been trying to win these big races or these championships like Elway, and the failure after so many years, and then they finally do it. So to answer your question, TJ, yes, I do. It's more so a matter of what's his head going to look like, because there was a lot going on with him personally. So, I mean, it's just the option, weighing of the options of that. I definitely think that he could get close again, and hopefully it's like the examples that I just listed. But, we've seen drivers that have been trying their whole career, like Carl Edwards, like Mark Martin, Jeff Gordon in 2015. Everybody thought he was going to ride off into the sunset. It didn't happen. I mean, he still won 4 championships, but that last one, and it doesn't happen. So sometimes the Cinderella story doesn't happen. But I hope he does. I hope the redemption tour is definitely a good one, because he's an important driver for the sport. and it's nice to see a lot more people appreciating him. So also thank you for being the one brave person to ask a question. But also now let's continue on with the season recap. Looking back on the season from the beginning, you did not expect it to kind of be how it ended in a way. Like we started off the year with the Daytona 500, and William Byron wins, and of course it's back-to-back. Then Christopher Bell goes on a little bit of a winning streak, winning 3 in a row, and then drops off a cliff until he wins at the All-Star race, and then kind of wins, here and there. But yeah, I mean, looking at the beginning of the season, I think I made a prediction video way back for the Daytona 500, and I was saying that, Chase Briscoe wouldn't win. And he did. He won at Pocono, and he won at Darlington, and also Talladega. Now, were those wins necessarily dominant? The Darlington one was. I mean, Pocono, he saved like 9 laps of fuel because of dirty air, which I still to this day, I don't know how that happened. And then Talladega with, Larson running out of gas and, all that kind of happening opened up the bottom lane for him. But, that was something, looking back at the beginning of the season, I never would have expected them to win 3 races when Martin Truex Jr. didn't win a race in 2024. And then some other stuff, Tyler Reddick not winning a race was not on my bingo card. I thought Reddick would be a championship threat. Went through the regular season, didn't win a race, so that was pretty interesting. Bubba Wallace, I think I had him winning a race. He won at Indy. I believe I had Christopher Bell winning the most races for Joe Gibbs Racing, and it ended up being Denny Hamlin, which I thought Hamlin was only going to win 2 races. I did not expect him to go on the run that he went on, so it's kind of cool to see that happen. I kind of compare it, I know I talked about Mark Martin before, but I compare it to the 2009 Mark Martin season with Hamlin. You don't expect, he's getting up there in age, and you're like, okay, eventually, and then he just goes on and wins, wins at Martinsville, wins at Darlington, Gateway, Las Vegas. I know I'm probably forgetting more off the top of my head. He had 6 wins, Michigan and Dover. So, you didn't expect that, but it happened. William Byron really only having a couple race wins. I thought maybe he would have, the amount that Hamlin had, but he didn't. Kyle Larson only ended with 3 wins. Thought he would be higher up there. It's just interesting. I had Kyle Busch winning a race, and what am I thinking looking back on it? But hey, maybe Rowdy lucks into one before his career is over. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think unless he goes to 23-11. But yeah, the season as a whole was definitely an interesting one, especially going into Daytona for the season finale. Everybody kind of thought, all right, are we going to see an upset? And then we saw certain drivers clinch because others wrecked, but then I remember Alex Bowman was waiting at the track and coming to the finish line. Ryan Blaney was basically the only driver locked into the playoffs that was in the top 10. I think maybe Kyle Larson was the other one. But it's looking back on something like that, and you're like, what would have happened if Chris Buescher had won or Justin Haley? They wouldn't have done nothing, but how would that first round have been? And another thing too, SVG, I think I called that he was going to win every single road course race, and he won every single one but COTA, which I think they had pit problems. I don't know if they did it or not. Maybe that was the year prior, but I was I was close on a couple of my predictions. But my next topic that I'm going to get into is going to be, I did season polls throughout the year on Instagram after every race. And I'm going to kind of use that to talk about every race individually, because you're going to see what people who follow me liked and didn't like. And it's kind of interesting to see which drivers won the certain races that they didn't like versus did like. Because that definitely plays a factor. But let's look at the season polls now. I have them pulled up right here. I made a nice handy-dandy Excel spreadsheet. So I didn't do every race. I wish I did. I wish I had started in Daytona, and then there were races even after I started that I missed 1 or 2 in between. I think I missed the Brickyard, and I missed Pocono. But other than that, I missed the first Atlanta, and I missed the 500. But I was pretty good for the whole year. So if we're going to look at this chart of did you enjoy said race polls, I didn't know what to make the header here, but we started off at COTA and Phoenix, and it's very interesting. COTA, I remember they shortened the track, and it was a very good race. I mean, it was a good road course race. I remember Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell battled towards the end, so that made it interesting. Phoenix won. I don't remember it being a good race. I know there was wrecks. What I remember about that race is Catherine Legg ran in it, and everybody had a stroke about it, which you say whatever you want. I mean, just get cars on the track. I don't care who's in them. I mean, the field size is 36. It needs to go back to 40, or some races it gets to 40, but you know what I mean, or 39. But, when we get BJ McLeod, when we get Helio Castroneves, like the 500, we had, I think it was 41 because Castroneves had the provisional. Like, why can't we just fill the race? The races with these cars. Well, it's obviously money and stuff, but it's nice to see more cars on the track, even if it's Catherine Legg, okay? But anyways, that's what I remember about Phoenix 1. So Coda was ranked in 86%. People liked it. Phoenix was ranked in 85%. People liked it. I think that was voted Phoenix. There was kind of a photo finish. I remember it was Hamlin and Bell, but I just can't imagine that a Phoenix race in the next-gen car had over 80% liked. And I think that's just because it was early in the season and people were like, yeah, it's awesome, it's racing. And then, if that Phoenix race was in the middle of the year, it would have been a lot worse voting-wise. But then we went to Miami and people voted 69%, nice. And then we went to Martinsville with a 76%. Darlington 1 was a 59%, which Darlington 1 was awful. I mean, think about Darlington, that race. I mean, I'm trying to think back. I mean, I think William Byron led every lap until Ryan Blaney caught him and passed him with like 5 to go or whatever it was, or however pitch strategy. Or maybe it was Reddick passed Byron and then Blaney passed Reddick and then Larson came out and hit the wall 170 laps down, and then Hamlin stole it. Which, think about that. Yeah, he steals that one on pitch strategy, but can't win the championship on it. And it was funny. It was in the Carl Edwards paint scheme. I mean, that's just irony. Looking back on it all, I mean, it's like it was there the whole time with what was going to happen. But so Darlington was a 59%. Then we went to Bristol, and that, I believe, that is the lowest on my poll. Bristol, 24%. That was an awful race. Kyle Larson basically dominated the whole thing, led the most laps, almost all the laps. And I remember people were mad about that. They wanted, it was like Bristol, the fall Bristol race the year prior. Like it wasn't like it was the spring race in 2024 when the tires were shredding. So that makes sense for that race to be that low. And then we went to Talladega at a 54%. That race, Talladega sucks now. I don't care who you are. If you're a fan that loves gridlock, what is wrong with you? Seriously. If you like parade laps, lap after lap, and the fuel savings and this manufactured 3-wide racing, it's not legitimate. It's all manufactured. It's artificial. It's fake. It's all fake. I don't understand how people sit there and they like that. I mean, for the eye test, yeah, it's good eye candy. But man, when you can't even generate a run and pull out from the third row back on the last lap without getting swamped all the way to the back, even if you have 4 cars behind you, the second, if you pull out from the top lane and try to make that third lane, the car and 4 cars, let's say 4 cars come to the third lane. Well, the 5th car back in the second row just gets a shove all the way and you go all the way to the back. I don't understand how people like that, but maybe it's like the new fans, but super speedway racing. Daytona was good this year. The Coke 400 and Atlanta's great. But that Talladega, I mean, something's got to give. I don't know what it is, but it's just lousy racing. So 54% makes sense. I mean, it's going to be higher than 50% because it's a super speedway. There's always wrecks and a photo finish. And then we went to Texas, which was ranked higher, which is that Texas race was wacky. I remember Michael McDowell had a shot to win. And he didn't. He wrecked out late, and then Logano won his only win of the year and still had a chance to win a championship, which is crazy. But that race, I could see where it's at. There were a lot of wrecks in that race. That's kind of what helped it, cautions. And then it was Kansas, which was a Larson win race. So the 3 Larson win races on my poll, if we look at this, Bristol being the lowest, Kansas at a 48%, which is, one of the lower ones too, and then Miami, which was 69%. So, the Larson win races were terrible, and that's kind of because he dominated them. So it's like, oh, is it boring because of the domination or like what happened in the race? But I think it's a little bit of both. And then we look at North Wilkesboro. The All-Star race was voted in 87%. I honestly don't even remember what happened in that race. I remember the competition caution or the promoter's caution came out. Michael Waltrip dropped the caution flag, so maybe that's why it went, instead of being 60%, 27% of people said, oh, it's a good race. And Joey Logano didn't win, so that was cool, I guess. And then he cried. And then we went to Nashville. This kind of kicked off. Oh, I missed Charlotte. I missed the Coke 600. That probably would have been up there. That probably would have been one of the highest on here, but I missed that one. But Nashville, Michigan, Mexico, all 82, 83, 82%, so about the same. Mexico's surprising, though, because I remember SVG kind of dominating that race, so maybe it was just kind of like a honeymoon stage because it was, or like a, not honeymoon stage. It was the first time we ever went there. Maybe that's why people liked it so much. I don't know. But then we had Dover, a race that Denny won, which was 58%. And then Iowa, 64%. I remember Iowa, we're fuel saving on short tracks now. What are we doing? Like, this is the racing now. And look at my poll is showing you, like, what races are good? Well, so far, COTA, I still don't understand. Phoenix won. North Wilkesboro All-Star race. So honestly, this thing's all over the board. But as we got towards the end of the year, we knew what races were the best races for this car. Then we had Watkins Glen, which SVG dominated. I think the race took like an hour and a half or not even 2 hours. And that was 43%. Richmond was 85, which was the Austin Dillon win. I remember that race was kind of actually good with tire strategy and stuff like that. And then we had Daytona, the second one, which was an 89%. Surprisingly, that's not the highest on here, but I felt like that was the best race of the season. I don't think I had the second Atlanta race on here, actually, now that I'm looking back on it. So I really missed some good races on here, but I just forgot to post. And then Darlington and Gateway were both 74%, which they were honestly the exact same race. It was just dirty air. And Darlington and Gateway are basically the same track. One's banked, one isn't. They look the same. So that makes sense. Bristol 2, that was the race that had the tire failures, and that was voted 88%. That was a very good race. Then we moved on to New Hampshire at 77%, which, again, I kind of feel like is the same as the Darlington and the Gateway. Just dirty air, just no passing. So surprised it was higher. Thought it would have been down in the 60s, but 77%. And then Kansas, the second Kansas race was the highest on my poll at 95%, and that could be because of a lot of different things. Maybe the cautions at the end and the Chase Elliott winning definitely could help. I wonder what that race would have looked like had Hamlin had won or Bubba had won, because we know how fans feel about both of those drivers. So it probably would have been a little lower, but because Chase won, it boosted it up to the highest on the poll. Then we went to the Roval, which was a terrible race. I hope they scrap that track and just go back to the second oval date, 49%. And then we had a 73% for Las Vegas 2, a 75% for Talladega 2, and a 77% for Martinsville 2. And respectively, I think that's appropriate for all of those races. I don't remember much happening. I know Las Vegas, Hamlin kind of came back and passed Larson late. Maybe if I know Byron had his issues, so it wasn't like a rememberable race, but it would definitely wasn't terrible. In Talladega too, same thing, just gridlock and artificial 3-wide and 4-wide racing. But maybe the running out of gas on the last lap and Briscoe winning helped boost that because the first Talladega race was a 54. So, I mean, an extra, 21%. I don't know if maybe it's because it's a playoff race. And then Martinsville 2, I felt like really nothing happened in that race, just besides William Byron dominating and then Blaney kind of getting the lead and then Byron getting it back. So, but that was 77% compared to the first Martinsville, which was 76%. So honestly, Martinsville was about the same. So if we're going to say anything, there's one consistent track we know the fans like, it's Martinsville, because one was a JGR driver winning and one was a Hendrick driver winning, and they're about the same. So you can't say, oh, because of this guy, It was more or less. Like, you either like JGR and you don't like Hendrick, or you like Hendrick and you don't like JGR. So that's kind of respectable to see that the fans voted fairly on that. And then the final race, the championship race, is 40%, and it was at 38% when I was going to post it, but I gave it another day just to see. So it wasn't the lowest, but it's the second lowest, which is crazy that the championship race, for how good it actually was, got voted a 40%, and I think that's because of everything that happened with Denny Hamlin, because the race was actually good. Like, there was passing, and there was different drivers at the front, and then Hamlin restarted in the back on the last stage and then worked his way up and then passed every. Like, it was a good race. It was better than the first Phoenix race. I don't understand that. But the fans, they say, no, it's 40%. They didn't like that one too much. But that's because of the Denny Hamlin controversy. That's what that has to be. I mean, or not controversy, but what happened at the end. So, yeah, that's a shame that finish tainted a race, because that, honestly, I really believe that race could have been a 90%er. Even though Hamlin would have won, there were a lot of people that wanted Denny Hamlin to win that race. That would have been a 90%er, and 40% is where it lies. So next year I'll make sure that I start and I'll do every race, and then we can kind of look back on it and see. But so that's the season poll. Moving on, I want to talk about the new championship format. NASCAR has hinted that they are going away from the elimination round with the round of 16, round of 12, round of 8, and then the championship 4. The ideas floated around are a format that is 3 races, and then 4 races in the final round, with however many drivers would make up that in each round. And then, of course, the 10-race chase, which is another idea that we've done before from 2004 to 2013. And then, of course, the 36-race Winston Cup. You'd have to work in playoff points and stages. So I want to talk about each of those and pros and cons of them. But yeah, I'm the one that I don't want to happen the most is the 3-3-4, because it's still a playoff. And no matter what, if industry people are going to lie. I mean, like Mamba Smith or, the guys that are on the teardown, not Jeff Gluck. I love Jeff Gluck. He actually is, like, spewing, like, not nonsense. He's, coherent to talk about this stuff. But, yeah, anyways, so the 3-3-4 I'm least in favor of. So if I were to rank them, 3-3-4 would be the bottom one. And then we talk about the chase and the Winston Cup format. I think, so for the chase, I think yes, but the problem is how do you qualify for the chase? Because if it's a win and you're in, and it's 16 drivers, you're still looking at similar stuff happening. I mean, granted, then, like, there's no point resets and there's no eliminations. So, like, if you have a bad first, 2 races, you could still make up the last, however many are left, the last 8 of the chase. So I think that's good. I just don't like it if, we go to Daytona again, and, I mean, who's somebody that would run in the back? I mean, Cody Ware was leading laps in the Coke 0400. If he won, would he be in the chase? And it's a waste. So, I would like a chase, but I don't want it to be winning in. It should be top by points. And then if you win, you get your playoff points to start the chase. And that's it. You are then, not everybody's reset on what it, even. If you won 6 races, and I think it's 5 playoff points, so you get your 30 points. And if you won 10 stages, you get 40 points to start the chase. And that's your 40 points. No resetting. Make sure those 40 points last. You wreck out in first 2 races, well, you wasted your 40 points. So it's all about how they can structure getting into the chase that would make me a fan of it. I don't want to win it in. I don't think that works. And especially if it's 16 in a chase, that's ridiculous. It has to be 10 or 12 drivers, and that's it. And then I don't know what NASCAR will come up with, but I'm sure some way they'll screw up the chase. But we've tried it before, and nobody liked it, so that's why they went to the playoffs, and nobody likes the playoffs. So who knows? Maybe we'll go full circle and just go back to Winston Cup, which is the last format that I wanted to talk about, which is the Winston Cup or full season playoff format. Unfortunately, the Winston Cup format is outdated and probably won't happen. If a full season format happens, it will probably be something with playoff points and stage points and stuff like that. like winning races, or winning stages. So like you'll have to factor that stuff in. Fastest lap, of course. If they do the full season format, we have to bring back. If you lead a lap, you get your bonus point. I think if you lead the most laps, you should get a bonus point. And then maybe like if you lead at halfway, because that gives somebody a chance by fluke. Let's take Denny Hamlin again. He leads the halfway lap, and then something happens in the race where he doesn't win the race. We have to reward people for having a good day. And if something happens to the engine or something out of the driver's control, something terminal happens to the car, they shouldn't lose everything that they had for 2/3 of the race. If they led the most laps up to that point and nobody else leads more laps, they should get awarded a couple more points or a point. If they lead the halfway lap, like maybe do it like that. You lead the 25% of the race lap, you get a point. You lead the 50%, you get a point. 75% of the race, whatever lap that is, you get a point. So then at least if a driver, has a great, they lead 200 out of 400 laps and the car blows up, at least they got something out of it. Like you can't say, oh, well, they didn't do good all day. That is horse crap. I mean, stuff happens. And if you show up with a fast enough car, you should be awarded for whatever you do. And I know racing is whoever gets to the finish line first, and that would be awarded more points. But to not award somebody points for having a dominating race and then something happening, I think is blasphemy. So that's kind of the stuff we have to look at with the Winston or full season points. So if we do so for me right now to rank them, full season points is number 1. Number 2 would be the chase. Of course, like I said, with the suggestions that I had, you'd have to tweak them. And then last is the 3-3-4. Unfortunately, I think we're going to get the 3-3-4 because NASCAR is rotating the championship tracks. And what's the point of rotating the championship track if the championship can be decided 2 weeks in advance if they go to the Winston or the Chase? Which the Chase, it would be rare if somebody wrapped it up. And that's another thing, too, we got to think about. Every year since the next-gen car, most of the championships in the Winston Cup format, if you follow the Winston Cup page on Twitter that always posts it, have been close between 1 to 4 drivers going into the last race. Like this year it was only 2. It was Bell and Briscoe. But like this car is, everybody's equal now. There is no more ingenuity or creativity. Everything is vanilla. Like, it's no longer Baskin-Robbins where there's 31 flavors or however many flavors there are. So to have a playoff format where it's full season points or a chase, you're never going to run into that issue with this car when somebody's going to win the race 2 races in advance. Everything's the same. These cars are the closest they've ever been. There's a reason why there are certain drivers who in the Gen 6 and the 750 horsepower who maybe ran in the, in the 20s and the 15s are now inside the top 10 and winning. Like, we look at Chris Buescher in 2020, which is when he took over, I believe, to 2021, granted there was the 550, but there was still 750 horsepower tracks, and he's a good driver, but he wasn't winning. We go to 2022, 2023, 2024, won a race, won 3 races, won a race. Is that because of Chris Buescher, the driver, or is that more so because the cars are so close together that was the last thing that he needed? Because he's a good driver. I'm not trying to knock on him. But the fact of the matter is, like, we're seeing prime examples of this. Like, it's like, why? How can Justin Haley in the 51 car when he ran for Rick Ware Racing compete inside the top 10 in 2024 at Darlington and Gateway and all these tracks? That car in the old package, even with an RFK Alliance, I believe it was an RFK Alliance, if it was a Gen 6 car, that car still would be finishing 30th. So I just think that I'm getting a little bit off topic here. That's one thing you'll know about me. I kind of go on some tangents. But if you're going to have the full season format of the chase, do not be scared that somebody is going to win the race or the championship, a race in advance or 2 races in advance. And if they do, so what? They deserved it. We are not the NFL. We are not the MLB. We don't need Game 7 moments. Racing is your start to your finish. And that is it. Whoever does the best wins. Whoever is the most consistent wins. And that's what should be awarded. There are so many components of racing that can go wrong that you cannot have it come down to the Game 7 moment, because it's not a team. Like, it's just the drivers on track, themselves, and everybody else that competes. They can't, if the engine blows up, quarterback tears their ACL in the Super Bowl, well, the backup can come in and maybe win the game, because they're not going to the garage for... So here's a perfect example. For the Game 7 moment. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. So in the Super Bowl, if a quarterback tears their ACL, the starting quarterback, and the backup quarterback comes in, let's say the game is 7-7. It's the first quarter. Well, the game's still 7-7. So there's the rest of the team that can help them win that. I would say the engine is your ACL of your race car, I guess. It's the main component. You blow that engine, even though you were the dominant car, you unfortunately can't go to your backup engine. That won't happen. And even if it could, it would take too long to get a second car ready. I mean, that rule would never happen, but like, if you blow an engine, you that's it, you're done. Your quarterback tears their ACL, you at least have the opportunity for your backup to come in. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in racing. There's just too much that is outside of the driver's control. So that's my reasoning to, what formats I think versus what that I think won't be good versus will be good. But the last thing I want to talk about in this video, I don't even know how long I've been going at this right now. Hopefully, if you're still with me, 36 minutes. Oh, man, we're going to wrap up here. 40-minute episode. Pilot episode. Very good. So what I'm looking forward to next year and not looking forward to next year, definitely I'm looking forward to the increased horsepower package. I'm looking forward to see maybe what the short tracks will look like with that. I still think the shifting is the issue and the tire width itself. And, people say the underbody, but realistically, it's more so like gear ratio and shifting, because drivers talk about it a lot. You can mess up a corner at Martinsville, but when you run your RPMs in the third or fourth and you run it up, and you just get that little bit of a boost when you shift back into fifth, because that's what it is. Or if you miss the corner, you just downshift into third, get the RPMs up, and then boost off. And we play NASCAR video games. We do the same thing. We cook a corner, we instantly downshift to get the RPMs up to keep the momentum going. That's what it is. It's momentum racing, and that's what the shifting has done. And that's something that I don't think horsepower will help, but I mean, we'll see what happens with that. I'm excited for Chicagoland's return. That track, it's got an old surface. I think, Auto Club was such a great track with the old surface, and I think Chicagoland will probably put on the same racing that we saw at Auto Club with the next-gen car. So I'm excited about that. I really am. I hope they could do a night race. I know it's on 4th of July weekend. I think it's Sunday, so I don't think it'll be a night race, but it'd be really cool to see that track under the lights again. Of course, North Wilkesboro is going to have a points race. We'll see how that goes. Just scared again, just with the short track package, but I'm optimistic. So with horsepower being increased, the new format, of course, whatever that comes, Homestead being the final race of the season versus Phoenix, which is an ugly, parking lot. Bring back the grass. I'll talk about that in my next video. Yeah, I'm excited about those things. What I'm not excited for is Dover being an all-star race, because that just means one thing. Dover will not be on the schedule after this year, because there is no reason why that track should have the all-star race. The only reason it is going to have the all-star race is because they're basically scrambling and saying they don't want to be there, I guess, because, I mean, why would you make it not a points race? You have so many other tracks. You could have done a Charlotte Roval multi-class with the trucks, the Xfinity, and the Cup, and that could have been your all-star race under the lights. But no, you don't do that. You do Dover, which the all-star race should be run at night. Dover doesn't even have lights, and they can never get lights because of the Air Force Base that's close by. So it's going to be a failure. There's going to be nobody there. I mean, most of the time people don't even go to Dover anyways, but like I go to Dover every year, and I'm not going next year. Screw that. I'm not watching 200 laps. It's going to be terrible. I mean, unless they make the heat races longer, but like, what are they thinking? Like, who signs off on that and they go, you know what? The track that the next gen car sucks at, worse than North Wilkesboro, we're gonna make the All-Star race. We could just scrap the All-Star race. That would be nice. I mean, seriously, why not just scrap the All-Star race? I mean, yeah, tradition, but like, it failed at Charlotte. It didn't fail at Charlotte. They gave up on Charlotte. It failed at Texas. It failed at North Wilkesboro. It miserably failed at Texas. It failed at North Wilkesboro. North Wilkesboro was actually kind of cool, but it needed a points race. So you have to go somewhere else. And we're going to Dover? Are you kidding me? I just don't understand what goes through the minds of these people. It's like the ride at Disneyland. Like, it's a small world after all. Like, their mind goes round and round. But so I'm not excited about that. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, that's everything that I want to talk about in the first episode. If you stayed and listened to the whole thing or even bits and pieces of it, I appreciate it. Next time I'll be more lined up and a little bit more organized. I kind of have my mind all over the place, but I did want to just go over some of the stuff that recently happened and, some other stuff I thought was interesting that I had data on throughout the season. So thank you guys if you listen for tuning in and listening. If you guys are watching the video right now, thank you very much. I'm going to try to make these consistent weekly, and who knows if they get popular enough, maybe we'll do bi-weekly, or not bi-weekly, twice a week. Bi-weekly, that'd be bad if they were that popular and I had to do them every other week. But thank you guys. I appreciate everybody's support, and I will see you guys in my next episode.